may be said of you and I, that we don't just fold, throw it away, and give it up. That you still know how to hold on. Second thing about the righteous is they have a self-talk. I don't know if anybody would willingly admit that they talk to themselves. I do. I answer myself even, and it's fine. I wonder how, like some of us will see people on the street maybe talking to themselves and think that they're crazy. How did it look for Moses? Or Elijah, for that matter? I guess the difference is if he calls down fire to consume people, it happens, and you probably don't think he's crazy. But apart from that, I think he's nuts. That's not what I'm talking about. One of the things that motivational speakers and Anthony Robbins type guys, their whole study of human behavior, and they look at people who are successful and why they are. One of the things that they identify is people like this have a self-talk. Meaning, you're constantly saying something to yourself, whether you know it or not. You go out and try, or going to go for the job, you're saying, I'm never going to get the job. I'm not going to get the job. They're going to look at my experience is too weak. I mean, we're constantly thinking to ourselves, whether we're doing it consciously or not, there's something going on. And it may sound new as an idea to some people, but it's biblical, and it dates back 3,000 plus years, a lot longer than Anthony Robbins ever decided to take a breath, which he didn't do on his own. You have David here on the run. He was running from Saul at the time. He had the mighty men with him. And in 1 Samuel 30, looking at verse 1, they had been camping at a place called Ziklag, and some Amalekites come and attack them, take some of their wealth, take their families, take their children, take all it is that they have, and they run off. And we're going to pick it up in verse 1. It says, Now it happened when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, attacked Ziklag, and burned it with fire, and had taken captive the women and those who were there, from small to great. They did not kill anyone, but carried them away and went their way. So David and his men came to the city, and there it was, burned with fire, and their wives, their sons, and their daughters had been taken captive. Then David and the people who were with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no more power to weep. David's two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal, the Carmelite, had been taken captive. Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of the people was grieved, every man for his sons and daughters. And here's where it matters. It says, But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. So what do you do when you don't have, pastor doesn't pick up his phone, maybe your other friends aren't picking up their phone? So what do you do about strengthening yourself? He had people turning on him and everybody saying, well, look at all this stuff that's happened. There's no way that God could be working with him. Maybe we should just get rid of him. And rather than despairing about all that it is that was going on, the Bible says here he strengthened himself. As a matter of fact, different translation, the way that it puts it, for that same verse, this is in the Amplified Version, it says, David was greatly distressed, for the men spoke of stoning him, because the souls of them were all bitterly grieved, each man for sons and daughters. But David encouraged and strengthened himself in the Lord his God. So what does that look like? You think about a guy like David strengthening himself. You got their kids and everybody had just been taken away. He has this group of men that are following him. All their families are taken away. And everybody's just weeping. The Bible says that they wept till they couldn't weep anymore. pretty gut-wrenching scene, and he begins to encourage himself in the Lord. I mean, I can only imagine that it must have been something like, well, when I was shepherding the sheep, God helped me defeat the lion and the bear. And I remember Goliath, when he was out challenging Israel for 40 days and 40 nights. No one wanted to stand up to him, but I said, God has done some things to me. I'll go stand before him, and he killed him. I've already been anointed king of Israel. Could have began to rehearse all the things that God had done up until this point, and just got a little list going on the faithfulness of God and God's ability to come through for him. And you find in the next verse, he begins to pray and ask God, what do we do? If I go after these guys, am I going to catch him and get everything back? And God says, go. Do it. That's the problem with the righteous, friend. If you're going to screw with them, definitely the devil can take notes on that one. If God has brought me through a few things, God can bring me through a few more things. And it's a troubling thing to your enemy when you start rehearsing what God has done. You start declaring how God delivered you. You start declaring how God will do it again. Now you're a real problem to the enemy.